In this lab, we're going to construct a flowchart, and we'll use flowcharts to show the steps in a process. Now, you'll definitely need to know how to do this when you take your HIT 254 or your quality improvement class, because you'll do a project and you will have to flowchart a particular process or HIM process in particular. I also see flowcharts. They're just a picture of a process that's easy to follow. Someone can take it, follow the arrows, and do the particular steps in the flowchart. And many times you'll see it accompanying a regular procedure in the policy and procedure manual, and it's just an easier way to actually be able to demonstrate or display the steps in a particular process. Okay, to start with, on the flowchart, we're using PowerPoint, and we're going to start with a new document or a new PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to choose blank presentation. Now, one of the first things that we want to do is to set up our particular slide, our layout, and our orientation. And in order to change the layout, we want it to be just a blank page. And so we will go to Layout under the Home tab and choose blank. Now, another thing that we want to do is to change the orientation if the default is set at landscape. Landscape is when it's wider than it is tall, and we want it right the opposite. And so the way that we do that is in Office 2013 or PowerPoint 2013, we go to the Design tab, and you'll see it says Slide Size over in the right hand top corner. We click on that, choose Custom Slide Size, and you'll see then you have the orientation choices. So on our slide, we want it to be portrait instead of landscape. And so if yours was not automatically set to portrait, you'll need it to be in portrait. Also, I need to say that if you're using Office 2007 or Office 2010, on the Design tab over in the left hand corner, even though I'm using 2013 right now, there will be a title right around here that says Orientation, and you click on the drop down menu and you choose Portrait on that. And so that's one small difference. They had to change where they put that on 2013 just to keep us on our toes, I think. So if you're using an earlier version and you say, oh, mine doesn't have that, it's there. They're just putting it in a different place. And so we have our slide in portrait orientation, and we're going to construct a flowchart. On your instructions for this lab, I'm giving you the steps in the process of just pulling a chart, a paper chart, if you get a request. And so we're going to list all those steps, and we're going to use the appropriate symbols. And we're going to use, there's a lot of symbols that mean certain things when you use them in a flowchart. And you'll learn more about those symbols when you do take your quality improvement class. But for right now, we are going to use the right symbols, but we're not using very many of them. Now, to start out on a flowchart, there has to be a beginning and an end to the process. If you don't put the correct symbol at the bottom of it that says this is the end, then that doesn't tell somebody that process is over. So we need to always make sure that we both put a start and a stop on our flowchart. And any time we're going to put a symbol on our flowchart, we go to Insert, a shape, and when you click on the drop down menu, you'll see a listing, and you'll see kind of toward the bottom it says flowchart. And so these are the symbols that we're going to be using, except for we'll use quite a few arrows in here, and those are located in a different place. Now on a flowchart, when we're going to stop or start, we use an oval symbol. That's what that means. All of these symbols have particular meanings, and you would probably just by instinct say, oh well, this second one looks like an oval, but look what happens if we hold our mouse. It tells us what the name is, and that's not a start or stop. It said alternative process. But if you'll go across and find this symbol that's an oval, notice it says flowchart terminator. Well, terminator means end, or in our case stop, so we use it at the start and at the end. So if we click on that symbol, we go to the top of our page, we hold down our left mouse button and drag over, we are drawing that symbol. And you'll notice that the default is set that this is blue and there's going to be white text of a certain size, and on your instructions you're told that everything, all of your symbols should be white, and you should use dark text. So you should have black text, white symbols, and then the outline around it will be black. So we're going to be very simple instead of using a lot of colors. And the way that we change our format of our symbols is to, when we're clicked in to a symbol and we have the drag handles around it, and those are the things that allow us to hold our mouse down and drop, but it's just a selection of that symbol, we're automatically, notice that we were automatically taken to the format tab of the drawing tools, and so you can change anything about this symbol. We want it to be white, or if we wanted it to be another color, that would be the shape fill, and we would click on the drop down menu. In this case I'm going to choose white, and then the outline I'm going to choose black, and I'm also, before I even type in, I'm going to, this is for the text, and I'm going to click on black, and then if our symbol is selected, whatever we type will be in that particular symbol. Now I also had said initially, or on your instructions, that your font should be approximately 14. I just found that in this particular exercise that a 14 will allow you to get everything on one page, and so we're going to highlight the text. If we need to change the size, you can right click and you can change the font size to 14 or thereabout. There's all different ways to go about doing that. You could also click on your home menu and change it right here. But anytime we want to change something and we want it to stay changed, so we want everything in our flowchart to be white fill, black outline, black text, about 14, we set that on this one, and then if we right click on it, you'll notice there is a choice that says set as default shape, and so if we click on that, that means that everything we do thereafter on here will have those same characteristics. So go on and do that to start with, or at the very end there's a way to then just format everything at once, or you can do it individually. Okay, we've put our first symbol in. You'll see on your instructions you have all the steps in pulling a request or pulling a health record for a request, and so with each step in a flowchart, the symbol, I said a minute ago, each symbol means something different, and so a step in the process is always put into a rectangle, and so we're going to insert a shape. And on our flowchart, the first one is a rectangle. We click on that and we draw our shape. When the drag handles are there or it's selected, we can hold down our left mouse key and move it around if we want to. And notice that it came up, it's white with a black outline, and the text will be there. So we have our first step in the process, and I'm not going to put all the steps in. That's going to be your job in this lab, but I'm going to put in the first step. If we get a request for a record, the first thing we have to do is determine the medical record number. And just like on our organizational chart, when I said sometimes you want to just enter at a certain point and put it on 2 lines, and that way everything doesn't have to be as big, you can do that. And so there's our first step in our process. Now you'll look at your directions and see, well, what's the next step in the process? I'm not going to add that here, but I am going to show you how do we connect all these steps and different things in our flowcharts. Well, we're going to insert another shape, and this time it's at the top of the page under lines, and we're going to put an arrow in, and you'll see that you have the cross shape where you want it to start. You hold down your left mouse key and pull down, and then let up, and there's your arrow. Now notice it's not the right color, so we do the exact same thing as far as formatting this shape. We click on it, and then there's a shape outline. Since this is an arrow, it doesn't really have a fill, it's all outline. So we're going to choose black, and again right click on it and set as default as far as the colors. And so that tells us we're starting. We always follow arrows one way. We don't go up a flowchart or in a different direction than the arrow indicates. So we start, we determine the medical record number, we have another step which I'll let you put in, but at one point we're going to come to a decision. And anytime you're putting a decision in a flowchart, it's inside of a diamond shaped shape. And so we're going to insert a shape, click on with the flowchart. The third symbol is a diamond. We're going to draw it, and we're going to type in the question that we have to answer, either yes or no. Not yes, no, or maybe. There will only be 2 answers, yes or no, in any decision on a flowchart. And so what we're doing is we're looking up the medical record number. We're going to the permanent files to check and see if that chart's there. If it is there, we're going to pull it, but we ask ourselves, what are we going to do if it's not there? So we have a yes or no. Either the chart's there or it's not. So inside of the diamond, the question would be, is the record, we could say in the permanent file or there, and we always have to have a question mark there because we are asking a question to which there are 2 answers. There's yes and no. So we're going to go one direction and show the steps involved if the answer is no, and we're going to go the other direction to show what's involved or what the steps are if the answer is yes. And so let's start out, and we're going to insert an arrow and go this way, and we'll call this our no option. And then we're going to insert another arrow, and this is our yes option. And to manipulate the size of the arrows, same thing. If you want to change something, just click on it, use the drag handles. You can make it shorter or longer or straighten it up if you don't have it straight. And so we said this was no and this was yes. Well, we have to indicate that on our flowchart. And the way we're going to do it, we're not going to put in a symbol, because a symbol on a flowchart means a specific thing. We just want text here to show us what the different directions mean. And so what we're going to do at this point is insert a text box. And we're going to type, we said this was our no option, so we'll just type no here. And I want to make that font a little bit smaller, so you select it, the no, and type it. Do the same thing, insert text box here, and type yes. Okay, so after we answer our question, and if we say no, the record's not there, then we have to have another step in the process. And so we're going to put a rectangle here and indicate what are we going to do if that record's not there. Well, your directions show you, or your instructions tell you what you're going to do if the record's not there. You're going to determine the location of the chart in the chart location system. So you're finding out where the chart is. And then once you do that, then all of the steps are the same as if the answer was yes. And so we indicate that by, we can loop back into this flow chart here instead of typing those same exact steps over and over here and here. And the way that we would do that is with our arrows. Remember, our arrows always tell us where we're going, and so we're going to put an arrow here to indicate, okay, after we complete this step, we follow the arrow down, but since we want to loop in, we're going to put an arrow going right back in to here. And remember, always follow the flow chart in one direction. You just follow the arrows. You don't ever go up the opposite direction. And so then we can, I'm going to lengthen this and then put our next shape, which would be a rectangle, because we have another step in the process. And that would, I'm going to let you determine that we're going to, once we determine the location, or if it's in the permanent file, we're going to pull the record, and then we're going to charge it out in the chart locator system, and then we're going to stop our process. So we would go on. Like I said, it would mean the very same thing as if we didn't have this loop. We would have to retype or duplicate these steps that are the same in our flow chart. So you will complete this, make sure you have all of your arrows in the right place. I don't have all of them put in, but you will do that. Now, as I mentioned, we can change the location of these things by just clicking on them and holding our mouse down. And once we have completed a flow chart, sometimes we might find, oh my goodness, that's fallen off the bottom of the page, or it's all stuck up here at the top of the page. And so rather than moving everything separately, which we can do if we need to just move one component or one of our shapes, but to do it all at once, you press your Control and then the A, and that selects everything. And that's true with anything you're doing in any type of office function here or application. And so it selects everything. So then when we hold down our left mouse key, we're moving our whole chart around, and we don't have to move everything separately. So we want it centered on the page, and I think that's part of your instructions, is to center everything on your page, make it look presentable and pretty and everything, and so, or neat, and make it easy to follow. Now, the last thing that I'm going to tell you about the flow chart is that you need to put your name on it. And I mentioned this before when we were doing our organizational chart, is that in PowerPoint, you can't just type by itself as far as just typing like your word processing. You have to do it in some type of shape or a text box. So we're going to insert a text box just as we did where we were putting our answers on our decision, and type that in. Now I want to point out that anytime you're inserting a text box, I don't know what your default is, and you may have actually a border around this or your outline. Well, if that outline's showing up, it's going to look just like the rectangle that is a particular flowchart symbol. So we don't want a rectangle around it. So we can format this just like we would with these other shapes, and if there was an outline on it where we're putting our name, we would actually do the same thing, but we would come in and put no outline, and then you can type your name on the flow sheet. So just make sure that when you're typing in loose text that you don't put the border around it to make it look like a rectangle, because that's saying this is a step in the process. And so just make sure that you do that. So those are the basics. Again, when you take your quality improvement class, you're going to learn what all the other symbols, or what many of the other symbols mean, and you will use this again. So make sure you pay attention, or even save the instructions to so when you're having to construct a flow chart for your quality improvement class, or later on maybe in a clinical or at work, that you will know how to do that.